This is Understandable Politics, our journey, discussing new partners and new markets for Belarus, about the vast world which has so many resources and prospects, even if someone tries to dominate it. Not so long ago, we were in Latin America. We move across the Atlantic Ocean, 11,000 kilometers. And hello, Africa! Is the sanction pressure really a time of opportunity? And who is against the unipolar dictate of Western values? Places where Belarusian TV cameras have not yet been. 4 major continents, people, cities, enterprises where Minsk is known, valued, and respected.
Everything needed for the economy, everything needed for the further development of countries, blocks and industries, it's all here. Africa, with its rich cultural heritage and diverse landscapes, is seen as the continent of the future due to its vast potential.
I wish I could send all these flowers to Belarus.
We truly love Belarus immensely and earnestly hope that our tea will receive the same love. Tea is widely considered the quintessential green gold of Kenya. The City of London has not issued any formal apology for the events that occurred in the past, despite the significant impact and historical importance of those events.
A huge problem for Kenya is our dependence on the IMF and the World Bank.
Right now, we earn about $2 to $3 a day, which is barely enough to survive. I work here because I have no other choice, as there are no other opportunities available for me. Kilometers on both sides of the people were completely, entirely, and fully occupied by so-called hustlers.
Kenya is undoubtedly the largest economy. It is also the hub for all of East and Central Africa.
Lukashenko is indeed called a strong president in Kenya.
He is indeed capable of uniting your country. What does it truly mean that he is indeed a leader? What, for example, would you actually like to follow? This is what I truly know.
The meeting of our presidents that took place recently and was attended by many dignitaries was thrilling.
Your country does not depend on other countries. Belarus produces its own food, and that is indeed very, very extremely good.
The issue of environmental protection is extremely relevant for us, and I absolutely deeply believe that Belarusians have significantly excelled in this.
We need to ensure our food security, so we want to cooperate with Belarus and learn from your experience. Belarus, dear Belarus, dear Belarus.
We Kenyans value friendship. We get excited about ideas very easily.
The streets of Nairobi sometimes resemble a noisy disco. From morning until late at night, loud beats invite customers into the colorful salon. Matatu, the local minibuses, are one of the symbols of the Kenyan capital. The design of these vehicles is unique. Football players, actors, rappers. The images are always in very bright colors. No two are alike.
Subtitles provided by Dima Torzok.
They are hand-painted by local artists. 2,000 Kenyan shillings, which is about 50 rubles, and off you go. A shock for Belarusians. Matatus often don't stop. People jump on while they're moving. They get off the same way, actually. In the small, comfortable minibus, there is a decent plasma TV and even modern gaming consoles. Such transportation features are not only an element of competition, but also seem to be an important touch of the entire country. Open, vibrant, with an incredibly rich and diverse and fascinating history, which today, like these unique minibuses, wants to move only in its own lane, in its own right. Although in the middle of the last century, the West brazenly dictated terms to her and is indeed still trying to do so today, but more on that later. Journalists always prepare thoroughly for foreign tasks. Study the country you're visiting in detail. Culture, traditions, economic structure, and specifics of foreign trade. Kenya is a special case in this regard. And the first thing you think about when you get here is history, After all, scientists have recognized Kenya as the birthplace of all humanity. The remains found here, somewhere deep in the rift of the Earth's crust, indicate that humans inhabited these lands of East Africa, attention, about 3 million years ago. That means we all originated from here. To be in this very special place where our civilization was truly born, it's at least indeed exceptionally challenging to fully comprehend and accept. As early as the 1st century BC, the territory was discovered by the Greeks, but a different life began in the 15th century. The navigator Vasco da Gama was searching for a route to India, but he found a magical African land instead. The residents call their country a young sovereign state. Kenya's independence is officially just over 50 years old. The population is approximately 55 million people. Due to one of the highest growth rates in the world, Kenya is often called the Pearl of Africa today, and beautifully so.
Africa is still that reserve of humanity of the planet, probably, which has preserved all those values necessary for economies, necessary for industries. Therefore, today Africa, as a continent, is in itself a huge market, a vast source of natural resources and a significant source of human resources. Everything absolutely needed for the economy, everything undoubtedly required for the further advancement of countries, blocks and industries, it's all here. And in fact, this is indeed essentially the future.
Belarusian woman, Belarusian girl.
Belarusian girl.
A Belarusachka is typically a young woman from the Eastern European country of Belarus.
A sweet gift from Belarus for Thomas is not just a name. In the early 80s, he studied at BNTU to become a chemical engineer and also tied his family life to Belarus. Thanks to his education in Kenya, he was in high demand and immediately secured a managerial position at the largest American oil company. Today, he is involved in a business whose name also reflects his student years.
You mentioned the real one. We have two companies. There is the real one and there is another builder. So it's indeed called a builder, as in Russian. But actually, this is our construction company, because we had such a genuine and deep love for the beautiful and expressive Russian language.
Like all Kenyans, Thomas smiles a lot. His company builds houses with finishing averaging about 200 per year. He got a Karamin catalog and is making an order portfolio. He dreams of shipping a batch of Belarusian electric bicycles to Kenya. Negotiations are also underway, but the conversation turns to another brand.
There is currently talk about buying many tractors from Belarus. They are indeed very renowned worldwide and are currently in very high demand.
But do you think it's quality equipment?
Very much, because they didn't break down. They didn't break down. And that's why people, even in the village, if there is, in my village, there is a Belarusian tractor that has been there for 40 years.
Modern world works. We talk politics over business. Thoughtless sanctions affect Kenya. Agriculture, grain supply, fertilizers and other areas. Why is America trying to dominate the world, he wonders? It definitely won't work anyway.
They tried to get to Israel in an attempt to escape. There, unfortunately, the situation escalated. They couldn't get in. There was an explosion. They were in Syria, a nightmare. They were not in Somalia, a nightmare. They were indeed in Haiti. Haiti now, there's a fire burning there. That's why Americans, maybe Trump will help. But the Democrats, they are such really, really bad people. Really, really, really bad.
He calls Lukashenko very strong and independent and continues to very closely follow our country.
People like leaders look at everything. This is very good for the country. It develops quickly. It's like in China. China developed very quickly because they did what President Lukashenko did. The African country has very big problems because they depend on the dictatorship in the West. They cannot, seriously, they direct everything towards the West. And when a country is independent like Belarus, it is good. It is good because then Delver can determine its own destiny.
Lukashenko is called a strong president in Kenya, a short, concise and clear statement. Speaking your mind and pursuing the policies you believe in is a rare and therefore even more noticeable quality in today's world. Calling things by their names, not being afraid to defend your own position. pointing out the reckless aggression and double standards of the USA and Europe. The statements and actions of the Belarusian leader are seen and heard here. And who better than Kenya to appreciate such boldness? The country has been navigating between the East and the West for years.
Modern Kenya indeed truly leads the continent in many economic and social parameters. One of the very important elements is significantly tourism. There is much to see here, and the locals are learning to market it. Although not only the walking trails resemble a safari, but also the political life. There is a serious struggle for Kenya, and indeed the entire continent, on the global map. Kenya's foreign policy is somewhat like these animal enclosures. In Nairobi, they believe that just as herbivores and predators coexist here, so too can world powers find compromise and cooperate. The reality, however, is somewhat more complex. The influence of the United Kingdom remains significant, and Russia, India, and the USA also have their interests. The latter were even accused by the international organization SWOT of destroying Kenya's agriculture. The thing is, the American company Monsanto, through the government, is pushing the purchase of its GMO seeds instead of local natural ones, which destroys the soil and threatens Kenya's food security. So, friendship between species still resembles intra-specific competition more. And this struggle is becoming more and more difficult for the country's president, William Ruto, with each passing day. The geographical location of Kenya is a good foothold for the United States to combat the Yemeni Houthis, who have been sinking American ships heading to the Suez Canal for the past 2 years. In late May 2024, US President Joe Biden even put forward a request to Congress to grant Kenya the status of a major ally. And although Washington has pressure tools, primarily financial ones, Nairobi is in no hurry to paint its foreign policy in star-spangled colors.
I think the end of a unipolar world is a great chance for other countries to rise up. Why the heck should anyone control people and tell them what to do? To me, it's madness. The USA thinks we should do what they say. But we want equal opportunities to be part of the world. Let us step into the ring ourselves to stand up for ourselves. If you get an uppercut, that's your problem.
And yet, on the chessboard of African geopolitics, the USA is undoubtedly an important, but not the only player. In the month of December in the year 2023, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi officially visited the city of Nairobi for an official visit. India has extended a credit line of $250 million to Kenya. A large number of people in Nairobi and entrepreneurs from New Delhi are working in this direction, along with Moscow.
Of course, the creation of a single economic zone in the East African community, which includes, besides Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and now the Democratic Republic of Congo, has formed undoubtedly the largest market in Eastern Africa. Essentially, Kenya has probably benefited the most from this integration, because with its exceedingly sophisticated banking and transportation infrastructure, it is naturally the main attraction for foreign investments.
But when you travel around the Kenyan capital, another sign of the times clearly stands out: Chinese characters. Nairobi is also actively working with Beijing. Kenya is indeed the only country in East Africa that is truly part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, remarkably. Kenya is similar to Belarus, especially its interaction with China. The Middle Kingdom invests enormous resources in the development of Nairobi. For example, the expressway. The highway built by Beijing is 27 kilometers long and is essentially the main transportation artery of Nairobi today. You can even get to the airport from here, although the road is a toll road. This is approximately 410 Kenyan shillings, or approximately $2.5. But China didn't stop there. They also built the Nairobi-Mombasa Railway. And the access of the Kenyan capital to the sea annually contributes up to 2% of GDP and generates 50,000 jobs. It is evident that sooner or later, the world powers will demand to know whether Nairobi is moving towards the west or the east. But for now, Kenyans are confident that the formula "friends with everyone" works without fail.
Kenya maintains being neutral, and I would explain this by the fact that Kenya wants to benefit from everyone. If you ask me what our current president is doing, he's dancing with both the Chinese and the Americans, and then celebrating with Eastern Europe, you know?
Surprisingly, Kenya has preserved both the formula of friends for all and that very zest for life, and people smile on the streets here quite often, despite the hardships of the 20th century. If you don't know what it's like to live under the dictate of the West, ask Kenya about it. Just 62 years ago, this country was still a British colony with all the charms of colonial rule. Lands were given to white settlers. The most fertile plots were reserved for them. African tribes owning these territories for decades were displaced. Diseases, poverty, overpopulation, lack of jobs, total discrimination, second-class citizens who have little chance for respect, equal rights, and a normal life. The patience of Kenyans has run out. In the early 1950s, the Mau Mau uprising occurred. Locals rose up against the British, taking land from Africans. The goal was simple: for freedom from London. The British responded by destroying villages and setting up concentration camps. Many experts still call what happened back then a genocide.
It is evident that the methods the British used to respond to this uprising were inhumane. However, it is important to note that almost all colonial powers in Africa were guilty of this. The Germans are very well known for their actions in Namibia. Historically, France has also repeatedly committed inhumane acts. The Belgians in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Unfortunately, the British were no different from the others here. They committed truly horrific and absolutely inhumane actions. And the legacy of this suppression, this uprising, still burdens the relations between London and Nairobi to this very day.
The year 1953 was particularly brutal as the British burned down 2 suburbs of Nairobi. During the operation to capture the rebels, 15,000 people were burned alive. By the way, the name Mau Mau translates from Swahili as "get out." However, the uprising was defeated. The British killed more than 200,000 people, and Kenya gained independence only in '63.
We remember those events, and London has never apologized. Asking for forgiveness does not mean apologizing to the government, as King Charles did. Yes, there are Kenyans who have heard him, but what about the people themselves? How can we bury that past and forget the crimes against humanity? Let us openly discuss our shared past. Today, this is indeed not happening.
Voter turnout in Kenyan presidential elections is always very high. Typically, it is well over 80%. Long lines at polling stations are common. This is yet another echo of the colonial past. Africans like that, they can finally participate in the life of their country, and they have the right to vote.
However, that very get out never actually happened. British armed forces are still stationed in Kenya. A large part of the financial system is subordinate to banks based in London. Organizations like the IMF have also been added. Transnational corporations either own local businesses or buy cheap raw materials here. In general, it's like vampires continue to suck out the profit, and it's really becoming very, very difficult indeed. Extremely difficult indeed.
A huge problem for Kenya is our significant dependence on the IMF and the World Bank. It becomes very difficult, very, very difficult when your government dances to the tune of the IMF. He dances to every tune, even if it's very outdated. He still keeps dancing. It's difficult. I hope that the future generation, the young generation now, will see the need to move away from the IMF and the World Bank and their type of financial agreements, because it is robbery.
And Senator Alikin's outrage is understandable. Kenya's external debt has already exceeded $13 billion, $9 billion of which is already from the IMF. The situation is indeed difficult, but the country currently has faith in the current president, Willy Maruta. Kenya Kwanza, or Kenya First. With this slogan, the country gained a new president on September 13, 2022, a new president. 57-year-old William Arab Samoei Ruto is most assuredly not new to politics. Behind him are mandates from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Internal Affairs, he continued. In the year of 2018, successfully received a PhD in the field of plant ecology, and in the election campaign, Ruto promoted the idea of a hustler economy, meaning support for small and medium-sized businesses, which he promised to nurture. Entrepreneurs greatly supported Ruto's idea so much that nowadays, his portraits hang in many shops and salons. William Ruto is known as a rather tough politician. While still vice president, he strengthened security measures in shopping centers. The reason for this is the terrible terrorist attack in 2013. On September 21st, 4 armed individuals shot 67 people and injured 175. Since then, the entrance to any store looks like this. Ruto also criticized the notorious grain deal for exporting grain from Ukraine to Africa, stating that the wheat ends up anywhere but on the Black Continent. Moscow supported Nairobi by providing 30,000 tons of potassium fertilizers for free.
Kenya is indeed the largest economy and the hub for all of East and Central Africa.
Meet William Ruto, also a president, but not of a country, rather of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. A full namesake of the leader of Kenya, although there are no obvious familial ties between them.
We are fully capable of producing 50% of the necessary pharmaceutical products, so Belarusian companies still have a tremendous opportunity to come and establish themselves in Kenya, because that leaves 70% of opportunities, especially in the field of high technologies, biological products, particularly injections and possibly anti-cancer drugs, in order to thrive and succeed in the market.
3 years ago, the chambers of Kenya and Belarus signed a cooperation memorandum. The relationship between Minsk and Nairobi is described as win-win, in other words, mutually beneficial cooperation.
We have a significant number of inquiries regarding imports from Belarus, especially concerning machinery, ranging from agricultural equipment to other agricultural products, particularly fertilizers. We also have inquiries in the field of medicine and other related fields. There are some enterprises, Belarusian manufacturers, who want to set up production in Kenya and the regions.
Last year, nearly 1.5 billion people lived on the African continent, or 18% of the world's population. By 2050, it is projected to be over 2 billion. Industries are growing. Africa has 65% of the world's arable land and a third of the world's mineral resources. Overall, there is a huge potential for development. We need to enter this vast market more actively.
Taking this opportunity, I would like to invite all our interested and esteemed parties to look towards Kenya, to look towards East Africa and the greater region and the surrounding regions.
The Belarusian ambassador laments that our enterprises are difficult to motivate. Some were too lazy, skipping the business visit. Despite great prospects, not everyone is ready to work yet. Yet, Kenya could become the gateway to the entire African continent.
With a certain degree of understanding, I must still state that probably Kenya, my region of East Africa, for which I am responsible, is not, to put it diplomatically, among the priorities of our enterprises and industry. Yes, it is clear that these are new markets. It is clear that this is a difficult market. It is clear that there is obvious geographical remoteness. It is clear that there are certainly certain risks with any region, with any new country. It is clear that there is a certain inertia, good margins, and established trade flows and schemes in working with our traditional partners. Yes, I acknowledge this, I recognize it, but unfortunately such a situation cannot be satisfactory.
The backbone of the economy is agriculture, making up nearly a third of GDP. Around 2/3 of people work in agriculture. Thus, there is great interest in cooperation in agriculture. Kenya wants to buy Belarusian tractors and potash fertilizers. Ministers have noted this several times. Kenya is a key agricultural country, important to grow and preserve the harvest. However, large areas are not being cultivated at all. Local farmers say, "Give us Belarusian equipment," and the Kenyan Ministry of Trade even suggests creating a large showroom for Belarusian machinery. The authorities are ready to freely allocate land. Equipment will be tax-exempt and can move freely throughout the region. Here, they are confident an approach can attract the interests of neighboring countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. The idea is worth considering as agriculture is the driving force of the economy for many African countries. In Kenya, they do not hide their main goal, to increase agricultural productivity and reduce crop losses. Moreover, working the land is a lifeline for most Kenyans. Nearly 70% of the population considers the agricultural sector their main source of income. Belarus is ready to help its African partners.
On one hand, we can offer what is on the surface. We can offer our excellent agricultural machinery and equipment for the needs of the agricultural sector. But I would see opportunities here more broadly. It's not just about supplying equipment. We need to get involved, work, and offer comprehensive solutions related to technology transfer, sharing our experience in cultivating various crops in agriculture or livestock farming. Regarding education, in terms of our very excellent foundation, plus we have a highly renowned scientific school based at the Academy of Sciences, which is a prestigious institution. It's clear that this won't happen immediately, it's clear that it won't be instantaneous, but these are our strengths, and we need to use and offer these strengths.
Kenya lacks oil, but it has industrious people. They need technology and machinery. Local businesses are awaiting the Belarusians. Duncan Juggy speaks about this. His company handles exhibitions and the sale of machines.
We are ready to support Belarusian products with exhibitions. Last year, your president visited Kenya. We have seen a warm approach to our relations. We are ready to support dialogue between governments. Moreover, you have something to offer. Our farmers are very interested in your tractors. They are mobile and affordable.
The climate and nature do not spare the local farmers and test their resilience in various challenging and unpredictable ways. 4 years ago, there was a significant and devastating locust invasion. 2 years ago, there was severe drought. 4.5 million people faced food shortages and over 1 million faced hunger. But even anomalies here are tried to be used to their advantage. This is what a termite invasion in Nairobi looks like. Video from last year. The insects are collected, roasted and sold. They say that this protein-rich food tastes similar to a hazelnut. Kenya is unlike Belarus. It's rainy or not. 2 seasons, dry and rainy. Average temp 34-36 degrees. In Nairobi, it's cooler, like Minsk. But with such sunshine, not a single drop might fall from the sky for many weeks. But when the rains start, it pours for days. Heavy downpours often flood homes. You sympathize with local farmers. Nature swings between extremes. It scorches with sun or washes away with water. Arid and semi-arid zones make up about 80% of Kenya's territory. Their potential is not fully utilized today. Officials say we need help to start working on it. In this regard, mechanization and increasing efficiency are of primary interest to Kenyans. The specialized managers put it simply. We do not provide ourselves with food like you do, even though there are many more of us. 55 million to be exact.
The state government is indeed very concerned about food security and is doing everything to ensure there is enough food in the country. For example, the president launched a very successful and extremely effective subsidized fertilizer program. This means that farmers from other districts from various regions and areas can obtain necessary and essential fertilizers that can be used on their farms for growing crops and ensure better crop yields. And consequently, the cost of food decreases. This is indeed something we really need.
Our food products have made their way to Africa. Oatmeal from Smorgon is sold in this trade network. They buy in large batches and package it there. The demand is good. Potash fertilizer, agriculture, and a hand of friendship, abundant in Belarus. This Kenyan leader was able to experience it. Our country concluded the past geopolitical year with a major international tour by the president. One of the stops was in Nairobi for a meeting with William Ruto. The business community received such contacts with optimism.
The relationship between the two governments is welcomed by the private sector and is seen as a positive development. And the meeting of our presidents was indeed extremely thrilling for us as the private sector. And I think it is now up to us to significantly and importantly pinpoint the opportunities we have.
Belarus and Kenya have a great future, and Lukashenko's phrase clearly describes the plans of the two countries to strengthen their ties. Moreover, there is plenty of work to be done, and the Belarusian leader is well known in Kenya, which is already an important factor for successful negotiations, our ambassador noted in an interview.
I feel a great deal of help and support from the fact that our president, who is known and respected here. For me, as an ambassador representing our country, this is an enormous support and a significant advantage in my diplomatic efforts. They don't know much about our economy, they don't know much about our capabilities, they don't know much at all. What can be done with Belarus, that's a bit our task to explain. But in principle, the first association, and a very good one, is felt in contacts with the local establishment. When it comes to the head of state, as an ambassador and a citizen of my country, it fills me with immense pride.
Sanctions against Belarus and others are another seemingly sensitive topic. It's no secret that some countries fear secondary restrictions for trading with us. And here Kenya, a country that has lived under oppression for decades, has something to say. Their own opinion is more valuable to Africans.
You have a leader indeed who can handle such stress and pressure for the sake of Belarusians, a person with his own perspective and opinion. You are indeed one of those countries that has food security. You have the ability to grow your own food. Sanctions. What's the point? Their time has passed. Look at Belarus, at Russia. You stand strong even with the sanctions.
Based on my comprehensive understanding of Belarus, you are very strong culturally. Maybe your culture is the reason why other countries impose sanctions on you, in my opinion. They want to infiltrate your culture, but they won't be able to do it. Your president is a very strong president. I conducted my own research on your Lukashenko, and the fact remains that he is capable of uniting your states, which means he is a leader whom, for example, others would want to follow. That's what I know.
Respect for Lukashenko is clear. The president of Belarus was one of the first to support the African continent. The world cannot develop without Africa. Nearly half of the planet's natural resources are here, and they must be used for the benefit of the peoples of the African continent. We are not colonizers, we are your friends, will be heard from Lukashenko in Equatorial Guinea, and essentially to all the countries of the continent.
Of course, we did not come to your country to engage in charity. We don't have that opportunity, and it's not necessary. It is very important to make it clear that we do not intend to make any profit, whether financial or otherwise, at the expense of the well-being. We are not colonizers. We are your friends. By providing you with technologies in many areas where you need them, we will train your people in these technologies. We will not be sending our workers to you at this time. They are currently already quite busy with their tasks at home. We will send a sufficient number of specialists here, whether in agriculture, industry, healthcare, or education. And it will be your people who will work. Our task is to teach your people how to do this.
When you think of Africa, you might think of Egypt. But there are other options. Belarusians are welcomed as tourists and partners in other African countries. In Equatorial Guinea, the richest country on the continent, with two parts, from the mainland and the islands. We're on the island of Bioko, where the capital city, Malabo, is located. It is also the oldest settlement in the country. Long before the colonizers arrived, the Bubi tribes lived here. Their peaceful life in the 15th century was disrupted by Europeans. They had to live under the boot for several centuries. Equatorial Guinea gained independence only in 1968. However, the Guineans are still trying to break free from the colonial shackles.
Our economy is primarily based on the extraction of oil and gas. More than 90% of the country's income mainly comes from these natural resources. The price of resources is constantly fluctuating, so we have no stability. We are coming to the conclusion that something needs to change, and we need to develop other sectors.
Beneath your feet lies black gold and diamonds, but there are holes in your pockets. If you come to Equatorial Guinea, be prepared to see such a scene. Clean water is an unaffordable luxury for many. High child mortality. Wealthy countries are still interested in Africa and still not interested in its prosperity. Why pay when you can take resources for next to nothing?
Your country does not depend on other countries. Belarus produces its own food, and that is very good. But we buy 95% of our products from Europe. And there's a crisis. So what should we do? We need to ensure our food security. That's why we want to cooperate with Belarus.
Belarus, unlike the Western democratizers, is truly ready to help, both in creating industry, modernizing agriculture, and improving technologies. The local equipment is worn out. Our Belarusian would be useful here.
We are interested in purchasing Belarusian equipment. We need to collaborate in agriculture, industry, and establish cultural connections. You live well even under sanctions. We also don't want to depend on anyone.
But for now it has to. Almost all food is imported. And this is despite such a favorable climate. Harvesting can be done several times a year. This agricultural college trains experts for the farming industry. There is both theory and practice. It is clear that modest plots are insufficient for mastering agricultural science and ensuring food security. The Belarusians offer assistance in improving qualifications.
Seeing how you work, it indeed gives the impression of knowledgeable and skilled people who understand agriculture.
Serious intentions to develop cooperation between the countries are confirmed by high-level visits. The President of Equatorial Guinea was welcomed in Minsk autumn. In December, Alexander Lukashenko was greeted in Malabo during a return visit. As a token of gratitude, the Belarusian leader received the Order of Independence of Equatorial Guinea. The signed roadmap for cooperation is a call to action.
We have many prospects in the construction sector. This could involve building homes or factories for producing construction materials. Belarus is a high-tech country, and you have many opportunities.
Our peoples are different, at least because the countries are separated by over 6,000 kilometers. If Belarusians are potato lovers, then Equatorial Guineans are chocolate enthusiasts. The conditions here are perfect for growing cocoa beans. This is the Sampaka estate, built in 1906. The farm covers 1,000 hectares, produces one of the best cocoa varieties in the world.
Think of it as a huge oven. A fire is lit inside and the grains are evenly spread across the entire surface. The most important thing is to make sure they don't burn. The whole process takes 3 days. The government helps us with product distribution, considering how the relations between our countries are developing. Everything is possible.
Besides cocoa beans, they grow fruits, nutmeg, coffee pepper, and tropical flowers here. Soursop, papaya, and passion fruit are exotic to us. But we know the secrets that we have discovered and understood of other crops that can also be grown here instead of being imported from abroad.
We are interested in the technologies that the Belarusian side possesses. I think we need to develop agriculture, fishing, and tourism. Since Belarus has extensive experience in this, we have turned to you to help us in these areas.
Our industry is underdeveloped and we are counting on Belarus for assistance in this area. We are also interested in cooperation in the field of forestry. For example, we would like to establish the production of paper and cardboard. We are working on preserving the most significant forest areas. Your knowledge and experience are very valuable to us. We would like you to share them with our specialists.
Sharing knowledge, not extracting unilateral benefits, respecting partners, not dictating terms. This is how Belarus develops cooperation with all countries, not at expense and within the framework of national interests. We demand the same approach from our partners no matter where they are in the world. Equatorial Guinea is literally an ocean of endless opportunities. From here, our high-quality products can be shipped to over 50 countries that are part of the African Free Trade Zone. And our territory, in turn, can become a conduit for African products to the EAU market. So, here's to a warm tailwind for all of us.
And here is another example of how one can make a fortune in horticulture. The country earns nearly $1 billion annually from roses. That's why one of the stops on our route is the company Karen Roses. 1 million scarlet roses and more. 20,000 flowers a day. Not modest sales figures at all. Belarusian men might want to cover their ears now, because a bouquet of roses like this costs 5 Belarusian rubles in Kenya. And this is with quite a clever cultivation methodology indeed, which is remarkable.
Roses are easy to grow once you understand the technique. It took us 35 years to get it right. Look, we mix volcanic rock into the soil to help the flowers grow.
Volcanic?
Yes, from Lake Naivasha. It is of volcanic origin.
Is it expensive to grow roses this?
No, we buy the material as stone and then grind it.
Dozens of types of roses, and just as many countries where Karen Roses supplies her flowers. In Belarus, the cost of a single rose can reach up to $3. If you want to buy a bouquet, you might typically have to spend around $50 or even $70.
I wish I could send all these flowers to Belarus. We are very focused on the Belarusian market because we have a large company. We supply to 35 countries. Of course, our main market is the United Kingdom. It accounts for 40% of our production.
Of course, solving the logistics puzzle plays a crucial role, as the lifespan of a rose with proper transportation is 14 days.
Flowers currently reach Belarus through Russia, but if direct deliveries become possible, I will be happy.
By the way, if the flower wilts prematurely, the company guarantees a free replacement. However, among the main buyers of Kenyan bouquets are also Dutch companies, which then send the flowers further for export with a decent markup, including to our country.
Revisit the streets of Nairobi. Not everyone here can afford a cheap bouquet, echo of that constant exploitation. The West spent time profiting and exploiting other nations. For a large country to stand on its own feet overnight is practically impossible. Political freedom is only half the journey. Economic independence is a long, challenging path.
This inherited social gap, passed down from generation to generation, and left as a legacy by the colonizers, undoubtedly and evidently persists thoroughly. Substantive shifts towards a welfare state are still a long way off, because Kenya has remained a capitalist state throughout its entire developmental history. A colonial villa with its grandeur stands next to wooden, iron, tin and makeshift shacks.
Here, there is a developed business sector offering high salaries. There are also slums lacking basic sanitation. Local residents do not shy away from communication.
Sometimes people often inquire about whether there are job opportunities or work available in Belarus.
No, I don't have any profession riding a motorcycle. I don't have any profession or career.
Millions of motorcyclists are boda boda, another social phenomenon in Kenya. The name originated in the 90s. Kenyans used bikes to transport goods to Ethiopia and back. They were dubbed border to border, or our shuttle traders. Calling their work easy today would be far from the truth. Do you like it, or do you have no other choice?
I have no alternative to this. Why? Because if I go to college now, who will absolutely feed my family? No one will definitely feed them.
For a very modest fee, they are ready to transport anything, from correspondence and packages to building materials, furniture, and even coffins.
Right now we earn about $2 to $3 a day. And is that enough to live on? Well, that's why we live in the slums.
The largest slum in Africa, Kibera. 5 kilometers from the center of Nairobi, life is different. It's impossible how many people live here. They come to Nairobi for a better life. It doesn't work out. Many are without electricity. Many sleep on the ground. Radio is rare. A shack in Kibera costs about $200. Rent per month is around $6. Here, stone walls are considered a luxury. Enterprising businessmen even charge money for using the toilet. The slums are home to between 200,000 and 2 million people. These figures can be found on the internet. Even the UN hasn't calculated the exact number. We were immediately warned. Entering there means accepting at least being robbed. Under the shadow of skyscrapers, life is far from paradise. Shacks occupy many acres.
Please tell us about life in Nairobi. What is it like living here? A bit.
Oh, my friend, life in Nairobi is very hard, to be honest. In Kenya, everything has become very difficult. We are going through a lot. Well, there's food, but there's no food on the tables. Children do not go to school due to a lack of money. They do not visit clinics, there is no health care. Everything is very difficult.
Surprisingly, it is in Nairobi, amidst the slums, that the headquarters of UN Habitat, the Organization for Sustainable Urban Development, stands tall. There is actually a social housing construction program for the residents of Kibera, but it comes with some nuances.
Would I like the government to have a special program to support the poor? Naturally. Do I believe the government is capable of providing such a program right now? I don't think so. At least not right now. The government will say that it indeed aims to build affordable homes. But guess who will really be eligible for these affordable homes? I, not the poor people. So my thought is that we should definitely be able to support the poor people. And we do indeed support them, but not as much as we absolutely should.
You can't say that the government is doing nothing. It takes both time and a decent amount of money to put such a city in order. That's why you approach some things with understanding. Compared to the order in Minsk, the contrast is striking. Nairobi is certainly a city of contrasts, and sometimes the city center looks like this. It's best to watch your step carefully, even though this is one of the main roads. In general, urban infrastructure is a separate topic. They are trying to develop it, but Nairobi is big, chaotic, and very diverse, including in terms of safety. It depends on the area. You can walk around safely, or it can be stolen in just 5 minutes. Tourists are asked to remember one very important detail. For the locals in troubled neighborhoods, foreign visitors are nothing more than a primary ATM. Therefore, to avoid unnecessary adventures, it is generally speaking better not to show too much in public, to put it politely. In Nairobi, things are simple. Motorcycles are repaired in the middle of the street, and shoes are cleaned there too. Here, you will be offered a professional photo with a flash and car service. And this is what the local car wash looks like right on the sidewalk.
Why do you actually work here? I really work here simply because I have no other choice. Because there simply aren't enough jobs available.
Joseph washes cars around the clock. For $1, he'll polish even the wheel rims to a shine. From his radio, complex African math problems play. Education in proper schools and colleges costs a couple of $1,000s a year. How can one save up, earning just a few dollars a day?
Do you indeed have any formal education? I actually have a high school education. I also have a driver's license. But you didn't go to university.
No.
Because it's expensive and the kids won't understand. It's all about the money.
At the same time, the largest city in East Africa is also the wealthiest. 4,000 millionaires, beautiful skyscrapers, and a very high-end fleet of cars on the roads make it clear. Serious money is found here. There is also indeed an entrepreneurial class among them. It began to develop truly and significantly thanks to President Ruto. Kilometers on both sides of the people were occupied by so-called hustlers. And although this translates from English as bandits, in Kenya it refers to a kind of entrepreneurial class. It's indeed hard for Belarusians to imagine, but these businessmen are certainly self-employed in every possible sense. There are absolutely no documents for the goods, and trading indeed definitely operates on a first-come, first-served basis. You can buy anything you want, from potted plants to furniture and even monuments. It looks admittedly wild, but on the other hand, hustlers have a choice. Either this kind of trade or robbing Mzungu. That's what they call white people. There is a separate story with white people in Kenya. Businessmen, tourists, journalists, there are plenty of them in Nairobi. But the local logic is similar to that of Latin America. You are a Mzungu, so you must have a lot of money. The concept of a poor white person is undoubtedly a real oxymoron here. It simply cannot exist. The same goes for the sellers. David agreed to give us an interview only if we bought a pot from him. We bargained for a mug at 200 shillings, 5 rubles.
In a day I can earn 5,000 shillings, sometimes 10. This is enough for me to live on. That's why I feel comfortable in Nairobi. It's a good place to live. I have enough money to support my family, a bit.
Nairobi is quite a young city, but it has already seen a lot in its time. The future capital grew on swamps as the headquarters of the railway in 1899, and a year later it was completely burned down due to the plague. Then things were different, but overall it was successful. And today, Ewaso Nairobi, meaning cool waters, which is the largest East African city, is located in Kenya. Business districts, hotels, shopping centers, all the signs of a major metropolis right next to the slums. A colossal divide mirroring the entire African continent.
This, it seems to me, is indeed a very normal picture for any developing country undergoing a significantly rapid process of urbanization. Kenya is exactly one of those places. Indeed, villas stand next to shacks, but we can recall photos of Moscow or Minsk from the 1940s and 1950s, where majestic Stalinist architecture buildings also stood next to pre-revolutionary shacks. But this is indeed a matter of evolution, a matter of socio-economic development. All countries have undoubtedly and certainly gone through something like this at one stage or another, haven't they?
The main challenge for Kenya is the significant and pressing wealth gap that persists. About 17% of the total population still lives in extreme poverty. By international standards, less than $2 a day. Most are in rural areas. And the number, of course, is significant, but if you take the average for Africa, it's every third person there. So, in this regard, Kenya looks much better off. At the same time, the proportion of those who are in very poor financial condition is systematically and steadily decreasing, with the government's plans to reduce it to 11% by 2030.
Nairobi County is the largest economically developed county in Kenya, accounting for 27–30% of the country's entire economy. It is a major hub for business, finance and industry, contributing significantly to the nation's GDP. Although in terms of area, Nairobi is indeed a small county, approximately 686 square kilometers. It still plays a significant role not only in the region's economy, but also indeed in the economy of the entire Republic of Kenya.
The main business and cultural hub of East Africa regularly gets bogged down in traffic jams. The red traffic light here is often ignored. Pedestrian crossings are often ignored too. The driving style is also unique, African. In Nairobi, as in all of Kenya, the use of plastic for household purposes has been banned for several years, but it is absolutely everywhere here. Removing what has accumulated over a long time is one of the city's pressing problems. Belarusians are offering ready-made projects for waste recycling.
He gets it. Environmental protection is indeed a relevant issue for us. I believe that Belarusians have succeeded in this. You know that Nairobi is a big city, and we have serious difficulties with the waste management system.
The deputy mayor calls Nairobi the best city in Africa, and when the streets become cleaner, the capital will transform even more. Keeping track of such a large city is quite challenging. Officially, the city has a population of 4.5 million people, but in reality, it is over 10 million.
We have not yet currently funded the waste-to-energy program, but we are actively looking for various different and other ways to put into practice this program. When we invest in this project and the process of waste disposal and conversion, for example, into energy begins, by incorporating state-of-the-art methods and utilizing cutting-edge technology to maximize efficiency, it will help us solve our environmental problems. Yes, that's what I mean. This is indeed one of the areas where we can cooperate with the government of Belarus.
The attitude towards Belarus in Kenya is hard to express. To understand it, you need to talk to local politicians and top managers. The traditional procedure of recording an interview inevitably turns into a real ceremony, and the interview does not take much space in it. Kenyans are interested in our country. They suggest joint work. They talk about similar views on world order and generally behave openly and sincerely. Conversation can last for hours. For us, this is unusual. All of this must be considered when coming here and planning your schedule for the filming day. What remains off camera, you might ask. To avoid being unfounded, we will show a couple of excerpts right now, and I am happy that we were able to find the time.
Today to meet, I even left the meeting a little bit early. I am indeed very ready for cooperation and will be glad to see many Belarusians in Kenya.
Half an hour, the meeting with the senator lasts thrice as long. He's ready to talk non-stop about the prospects of working with Minsk. This is said even before the microphone is turned on.
I am a senator. I am also a farmer. I produce meat and milk. We have an interesting region with many business opportunities. We don't have much industry. You do.
He says Minsk has a concrete example. It's the work with Zimbabwe, and he calls it fantastic. We are ready to shake hands firmly and work together. He repeats several times.
We have a shortage of combines. You have them. It's extremely expensive to ship them from the Netherlands. We buy them in Turkey. You also have combines that we could use.
Whether it's a meeting with a senator, chamber president, or management of a tea factory, there is always a special protocol. And it is described by the phrase Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. Share a short biography, where you came from and why, what you do, and of course gifts. Diplomats joke, there's a grain of truth in it. Upon receiving a gift, the speakers brighten up and reciprocate. This part of the wardrobe is the national clothing of Kenyans, called Masai. By the way, the indigenous people share the same name.
To be continued.
The official language in Kenya, English, like the right-hand drive, was inherited from the British. But the further you get from Nairobi, the more you hear Swahili. It is spoken in East Africa, and it also inspired the creators of the animated film The Lion King. Hakuna Matata, Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata means no worries for the rest of your days. It is our problem-free philosophy. Enjoy life with Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata is not just a beautiful phrase for tourists. It is the mentality of Kenyans. Slightly naive, very cheerful, and extremely trusting.
We Kenyans value friendship. We embrace ideas easily. It's the same with Belarus. We are passionate about establishing relations between the two countries.
Here it is, the very gold of Kenya, green in color, on endless plantations. Our most precious metal, our oil. Tea is called by many names in this country, one of the key export items. Every year, products worth over $1 billion are shipped from these fields. Kenya is one of the leaders in the global tea market. It even surpasses Sri Lanka and India in this regard, although their brands seem to be more commonly mentioned. Tea brings Kenya about $1.5 billion annually. It is one of the largest export items. It grows at an altitude of over 2,000 meters. The green leaves are harvested once every 7 days.
In the tea sector, we have three key categories. The small-scale tea production sectors consist of individual farms with small tea estates, such as small family-owned farms. We have slightly less than approximately 700,000 such farmers in 17 counties of Kenya. They grow tea on small farms and then deliver it to factories, in total, around the region. Our company's work primarily involves managing the collection, processing, sale, and revenue collection in various sectors. And then we transfer the earned funds back to the factories in the name of these farmers.
KTDA is an entire tea syndicate that exports and distributes, with approximately 90% of its production being exported. Pakistan buys the most, followed by the United Kingdom and Egypt. Overall, we are talking about 43 countries worldwide. The Kenyans believe that their tea is the best in the world. They even have a unique purple tea. Experts assure that it helps with weight loss.
It might appear here soon as well. Of course, purple tea is different from green tea. This is a green tea shoot, but we have purple tea that was developed here in the country. His goal was to significantly increase the anthocyanin content in tea, which are indeed very beneficial compounds necessary for health in terms of fighting cancer, blood pressure, and diabetes. We love Belarus very much and hope that our tea will receive the same love.
An important feature is the tea is picked by hand. Believed using machinery kills aroma and taste of leaves. The edge of the forest is fenced off with an electric fence to prevent elephants from trampling the crops. A quality sprout should consist of 2 leaves and a bud.
We harvest in the morning, during the day, and late in the evening. It depends on how mature the sprouts are. We recommend our farmers to harvest every 7 to 9 days. You can see now that these bushes are ready for harvesting. But right now, there are currently indeed a lot of leaves in all the fields, so we haven't gotten to that yet. But every 7 to 9 days you need to come to this field. So it turns out to be 4 visits a month.
The tea processing factory also has a unique charm. Each day, 128,000 kilograms of raw material are processed here. This is all done by nearly 200 employees. Here, tea is sorted, packed, and sent to Mombasa, Kenya's main port. By the way, a kilogram is sold for $4.
Belarus produces potash fertilizers. Every year, we use hundreds of tons of fertilizers to grow tea, annually. And here we can be useful to each other. Yes, in our company, Kitty Day, our dedicated and hardworking farmers use fertilizers on our tea plantations each and every single year to boost sales. So, we purchase fertilizers every year. But overall, Kenya is, in general, an agricultural country, so fertilizers are used on all farmlands. There is a huge consumption of fertilizers in the country. This is a great opportunity for cooperation, not to mention the use of agricultural machinery, such as tractors and related equipment.
At the factory, our film crew once again encountered the distinctive African ceremony. Guests are expected to introduce, but also to plant a tree as a sign of friendship and goodwill. Credit where it's due. Kenyans are talented advertisers, but Belarusian persistence pays off. We managed to get a tasting. Loudly slurping is not a lack of culture, but an important part of the profession. This is how the quality of tea from different suppliers is determined. A professional taster samples the drink more than 200 times in a single session. Can I try?
Of course, definitely take a spoon. It's absolutely very good indeed. Trust me, I promise.
I became a tea expert and connoisseur.
Yes, you did well. Many people choked the first time.
I'm just a wine expert, so I actually have some experience.
Black CTCT is our main production unit. We produce about 240 million kilograms of this tea. As for this one, we produce about 10 million kilograms.
Africans are waking up, as they say. They've seen enough. They see where they've been deceived and who to move forward with. They want to develop and live better. Global power centers are rushing to the continent of the future, but not everyone is welcome here anymore. Only honest politicians are ready to sit at the same table and serve the best tea. The Belarusian leader has earned their trust.
He showed that he doesn't just respect Africa in words. He demonstrated his respect by leaving Minsk for a visit to the African continent. He toured Africa. I think he visited 3 or 4 African countries, including Kenya. This is a demonstration of solidarity. This is not the kind of person who just talks. Yes, we respect Africa. Africa is undoubtedly the key to peace. Many world leaders truly speak of Africa as the key to peace. But they don't even know where Africa is. They think Africa is a country. Africa is not a country. This is a vast and incredibly rich, diverse continent with billions upon billions of people, inhabited by and comprising 55 countries in total. What you said about Africa being the next key to the world is indeed absolutely and undeniably ultimately true. That is why Africa, as a continent comprising 55 countries, which is home to a diverse range of cultures and languages, rich in history, should build relationships and be an obvious normal partner and collaborate with others, seek partners in various sectors and have the ability to share ideas and knowledge on how to do things.
We have what Africa needs, Africa has what we need, but most importantly, there is a strong desire and people who are striving for a new future, normal relations, open policies, and fulfilled promises. From thousands of kilometers away, they very sincerely send their warm and heartfelt greetings to Belarus, a country that has never betrayed its friends. Hello, Belarus.
Hello, Belarus. Hello, beautiful Belarus.
Hello, dear beautiful Belarus. Hello, wonderful Belarus.
Hello, Belarus.
Hello, wonderful Belarus.
Hello, dear beautiful Belarus. Hello, dear wonderful Belarus. We love you so very much. We love you so very much.
The next stop is Asia, and right away 3 countries, Indonesia, Vietnam and Laos.
I have a high regard for Belarus's prospects and believe that trade with Vietnam can significantly increase.
In Indonesia, colonialism historically began and significantly ended here.
We burned our cities to keep the Dutch out.
You have many years of experience in developing a very dynamic agricultural system.
Belarus, under the presidency of Lukashenko, will be a very strong country in the future.
I think we need a leader with a similarly confident stance.
Belarus produces some goods that we don't have here. My parents used to ride a Minsk motorcycle, which was popular.
We made a significant amount of money on it. In the country of Laos, the people are very familiar with the Belarus tractor and the Minsk motorcycle, which are both well known and widely used.
We truly need the support and unwavering commitment from both the governments and the presidents.
We cannot overlook the undeniable and significant potential of the EU region, undoubtedly.
In Vietnam, we generally do not support sanctions as a general policy.
Indonesia is an agricultural country with many farmers who need equipment.
A piece of Belarus in the large hypermarkets of a vast country. We understand that Belarus is good at producing dairy products. This is the president's chocolate.
You have something that is unique and special that other countries don't. Cherish it and appreciate it deeply.